Uh-oh! The players decided it would be a good idea to explore left and right at the same time, by using the old Scooby-Doo quote, "Let's split up, gang!" But wait a second, Mr. Unicorn. Whatever happened to never split the party? Well, I'm about to tell you why never split the party is a rule I vehemently disagree with nowadays. I'm Extragalactic Unicorn. Let's get into it. The first problem that people think about when they start talking about splitting the party is the logistical problems of having two different sets of people at the table all doing different things. If you're a six-man group, you might even have all six people decide that they want to go and do their own individual things and quests. This isn't a bad thing. At the end of the day, this allows for a lot more personal character growth. It's an opportunity to have people spotlight themselves and put a focus on something specific that they themselves want to do. You can put down quests and opportunities for an individual and have those quests completed by them individually, and it allows them to come back to their own party members with something to talk about, something to roleplay against each other. Even if it's just discussing something that everybody has seen, they can think about what their character thinks about this, and they can have a little bit of time to digest what they want to do in reaction to this. And then at the end of the day, you have another scene for yourself. You, the Dungeon Master, are not necessarily going to be involved in that scene. It is purely a scene for the players to be talking amongst themselves, talking about what their other player has come back with, what they've been doing, and actually have a little bit more of a realistic roleplay reaction to it, rather than everybody having been present for every single situation. I always feel it's slightly awkward sometimes in certain roleplay video games where you have a group of companions, for example, and you're going and doing some specific quest for a companion, and then invariably you just have one or two other guys out who are just sort of along for the ride, and they're mute for most of the adventure. I mean, I know Shadowbroker's DLC is all about Liara, but did you have to body my man Garrus just for the specific boss fight? I mean, come on, he knows Liara just the same as Shepard. He's got to have something to say about it. So logistically, how do we handle this? Well, we need to understand pacing before we really understand how we can handle this. At the end of the day, a roleplay game should be made out of scenes that you're playing at the table. Each individual action and each individual room or event should be its own scene. Separate them out like a filmmaker would, and allow for specific cuts between certain action sequences. People tend to get a bit bogged down a little bit, especially in dungeon crawler sort of style tabletop games, where everyone's just sort of moving through corridors and doing checks and all that sort of thing. And while that's important for the board game portion of the tabletop RPG, it doesn't really lend itself to that tight action sequences that you would want from a roleplay encounter. So invariably, what I'll do is I'll take a little look at the handy clock on my computer, and I will then say, okay, I'm going to give this person 5 minutes or so in this particular scene, and I will just let them do whatever they want to do for a little bit of time. If they finish early and it looks like they've done the actions that they were intending to do, or if they're slowing down maybe and it looks like they're struggling a little bit, I'll give them a cut to sort of like think about it, and I'll move on to the next person. Either time or the relevancy of that scene goes away, and then we move on to the next subject, the next person. In terms of who to go first, well, I tend to just pick somebody who I think that the camera would focus on in that particular situation. I tend to structure my tabletop RPG scenes very similar to how one would structure a TV show. It has cuts, it has scenes, and I tend to think of it like that. And I tend to think about pacing through the lens of the person I would imagine to be the director in that particular instance. After all, what piece of media actually handles different characters doing lots of different things in various different settings and viewpoints the best? Well, books, TV shows. You've seen how they do it, so why not apply the same kind of lessons to your tabletop RPG table? So it's kind of quite simple how you actually handle this. I know there's a lot going on the other side of the storyteller's screen, but it's not too difficult to manage a couple of groups of players. Let them do a few actions and then move on to the next person and the next person and the next person, and you'll find you'll develop a good flow. Now, you're probably thinking, but Mr. Unicorn, I planned a bunch of combat encounters, and I planned the entire party to be involved in these particular encounters. What am I going to do when only half of my party shows up? Surely they're going to get creamed. Well, first of all, CR is a suggestion. Never underestimate the creativity of players when backed into a corner. Secondly, I kind of argue you need to prepare for this eventuality sometimes. If your players are raiding a fortress, they might decide to send in a lone operative. They might decide a couple of stealthy people need to go in and then open a gate or something for the rest of the non-stealthy party members. They might even decide, like my particular players did, to split up into teams of dark vision people and non-dark vision people for some reason. I don't quite understand that one to this day. At the end of the day, it's another vehicle to allow your players to act creatively. If they are going on a lone stealth mission, then they're going to use spells and they're going to use abilities that they don't usually get to use. And if you're really worried about it, well, if half the party are absent, just take half the monsters away. But if you want to stick to your guns, then I would probably telegraph certain scenarios that you think are particularly dangerous to the players. You don't want to just dump them in like an unwinnable situation just because you think, well, they decided to split up and I think that was a stupid idea, so therefore they decide to suffer. No. As DMs, we don't do that. That's called being a bad DM. Don't ever do that. No, if the players have split up and you think it's a particularly hard target for them to take down, then telegraph it. As you approach the bridge, you can hear the cries and guffaws from the local goblin tribe you've been sent to destroy. Over on the other side of that bridge, you can hear the clattering of spears and the sharp chirp of their voices. There's no doubt about it, there's a lot of goblins over there. You'll probably want to take this carefully. What do you do? Now, you could probably say I'm spoiling things a little bit, or I'm leading my players a little bit with my suggestion and narration, but at the end of the day, you don't really want players getting into a bit of a difficult situation and them thinking it's a bit unfair that you put them in that particular situation. Even if you think it might well be fair, you don't want them thinking that you're being unfair, because then they're just not having a good time. Getting yourself killed in a tabletop RPG is kind of sucky already. It's really sucky when you think that your DM has it out for you for whatever particular reason. All I'm saying is people are sensitive creatures, so, be careful. Honestly, I would even argue that you want your players to be splitting up at certain points. It means that certain people who may not necessarily be the most sociable get to actually spotlight their characters and some of the cool things that they do. Even if they don't necessarily want to have the spotlight on them all the time, they get to have the opportunity and get to split off from people to do something cool. And at the end of the day, even if they don't necessarily want to, you don't want to close the door on that particular situation. They might decide on the day that, no, they actually want to go and do a solo mission. That would be cool. Why not? It'll be a lot of pressure, but why not? And that's my guidance on how to handle, crap, we split the party. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please feel free to give it a like and subscribe if you want to see more of these tabletop RPG tips. I want to help people make cool things at the end of the day, so it'd be really cool if I could help you make your campaign all that much better. I also stream on Twitch, I have my usual socials, and did you know I also have a Discord? So if you wanted to chat about tabletop RPGs or, just talk about gaming or whatever, feel free to go and give me a visit in the description as well. That's all from me. Thank you very much. Cheerio.